Also, please wait more.
Okay, amigos, let's get started. And I'm going to give you a warning. In this tutorial, I'm actually going to go a little quicker, much quicker than my previous tutorials because there are a lot of steps involved. So let's get started. Control I or Command I to import your footage. And these are amazing work by friends and colleagues of mine. And definitely check out the work. So I'm going to select this one. I want to select this one. I'll select this one and then this one. So select all your images. And what I'll do is I'll create a folder, call it pics, and let's add our images in here. And click on the composition icon to create a comp. And what we'll do is we'll call this pic 01, and we'll actually make it 1200 by 1200. Now I'm going to stick with 23.976 frames per second, but choose the frame rate that works best for you. Now, if you choose another one, that will be the same frame rate that you will use in all your compositions. So keep it consistent. Like I mentioned, I'm going to stick with 23.976, and let's make it at least 1 minute long because for the template that I have on Gumroad is about 55 seconds. So we want to make it long, and you can always go back and change the duration. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And what I'll do is let's bring in our first one. This is from Alexis Quaresma, amazing photographer. He does a lot of his photography, a lot of the colors in camera, which is amazing. Okay, let's make a copy. Control D for pic 2. Control D again. Control D again to make copies. In the second one, let's swap it out with the second image. This is our friend Robert Washington. Amazing street photography. Let's go to the third one. For this third one, we'll use our friend Kristen Brown. Awesome photography of saints. We'll just move this here. We can actually scale it down. S for scale to scale it down a little bit. I'm going really fast on this one. It's just simply, amigos, get your pictures, scale them, reposition them however you want. And let's go to the fourth one. Delete it. And let's bring in this one from Stefan. Stefan does awesome sports compositions, and he just blends a lot of different images together to create these awesome compositions. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is go back to the composition icon. We can close these. Let's go back and let's call this side A placeholder. And again, 1200 by 1200, the same frame rate and a minute long. Hit OK. And what I'll do is I'll insert our first picture in here, our pre-comp pic 01. Now let's go back again to our composition icon. And this one, let's call it side A, and we'll call it 01, and just make it 1200, and the height, let's change it to 200 and keep everything else the same. Okay, and what we'll do is our side A placeholder, let's bring it in and hit P for position. And what we'll do is we'll adjust the Y value. Let's bring it all the way to 600 pixels. Perfect. And what we'll do is for the side A01, we'll make several more copies, 5 more. So we have side A01 all the way to 6. So let's go to the second one. And this one, let's make it 400 for the Y. Let's go to the third one. And this one will be 400. I'm sorry, it'll be 200. And let's go to the fourth one. And this one will be 0. Let's go to the fifth one. This will be minus 200. And let's go to the last one. And this one will be minus 400. So we have all the different pieces. And these are the different rows that will animate. What we can do now is let's close all these pre-comps. And what we'll do now is we'll do the same thing, but for the other 3 sides. So what we can do is let's actually create a folder. Let's call it side A. And let's place all these inside. And what we can do is go to the folder, Control D or Command D to make a copy. And let's rename it to side B. And in each one, let's rename it. And this one is side B. What I'll do is copy. And then I'll go in and then just change it. And then this one, we'll call it side B placeholder. Okay, so now once you've done this, go to the side B placeholder. And in this one, you can insert any other picture. For this one, we'll take the second one. And what we'll do is just bring it in. And we can delete the first one. And we can close it. And let's open each of these comps. And what we'll do now is simply swap this. So let's close this composition. And the easiest way to swap, amigos, is simply select the layer and we'll swap it with side B placeholder. And holding on to Alt or Option if you're using an Apple computer, holding on to Alt or the Option key, simply click and drag and it should switch. So we'll do that for each one. Let's go to the fourth. Let's go to the fifth. And let's go to the sixth. Actually, I need to select this and then swap it. Perfect. So you can see that we have each of them. It was easy to basically make the copies. And let's do it for the next 2 sides. So instead of showing this to you, I'm going to fast forward this section until we hit the next very step. Once you have all the different sides, let's create one more composition. Click on the comp icon and let's call it GRFX Slideshow. And we'll make it 1200 by 1200 and keep the same frame rate and keep the same duration, 1 minute long. Hit OK. Now what we'll do is we'll go to our side A and all the different sections 1 through 6. Let's bring it into our graphics slideshow comp. Now what we'll do is we'll place each one in the right order, in the right spot. Hit P for position to bring up the position and we'll adjust the Y value. So this one will go all the way up to, I think it's 100. Yes, it is 100. And the second one, hit P for position. This one will be 300. And the third one will be 500. Let's go to the fourth. This one will be 700. Let's go to the fifth one. Hit P for position. And this one will be 900. And the last one, again, we'll modify the Y value. And this one will be 1100. So we have side A. Now we have to do it for side B, C, and D. And the quickest way is to select all your layers, Control A or Command A if you're using it in an Apple computer, and then simply Control D or Command D to make a copy. And then we'll move it down and we'll change the color. And what we'll do is, again, let me make this bigger. Let's make another copy. Control D or Command D. Let's move it all down and let's change the color. Let's make it orange. And again, one more. Control D. And we'll change this color. And now what we can do is we can swap all of these images. And then the green one will be, let's move this up. The green one, let's make it for side B. And then remember, Alt or Option is your friend when you want to swap these images. And what I'll do is I'll solo these images just to make sure that it all looks good. Let's go to the third one, swap it, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth. Okay, this looks good. And now let's go to side C. We'll use all these orange colors. Let's solo it. And let's go to side C. Let's swap. And you can see that we have an issue here. This is the fourth one. So let's go to the fourth one and let's fix this. You can see that we have, let's see, we have an error here. This is side C. Go to the fourth one. This should be, let's see, we started at 600 and we went to 400 and this one is at 200. So let's make sure, let's go back. 200 and then the next one is 0. There you go. So if you got this, if something happens like this, as you just saw in this tutorial, you can quickly go back and just fix it. And that is why we're soloing, we're soloing all these layers to make sure that they all look good and they all line up perfectly. As you saw in that example, and there was just a slight mistake, but everything else is looking pretty good. And what we'll do now is let's unsolo this and let's go to the last one, which is side D. So all of these, let's solo and let's swap it. Holding on to Alt, let's swap. The third with the third. The fourth with the fourth. And the fifth with the fifth. And the last one, number 6, side D, with this one. And this one looks good. Now we're ready to place all of these images in 3D space. Let's close all these comps and let's just leave graphics slideshow. And now what I'll do is, let's actually make the timeline bigger. And let's parent for now. For side A, number 2 through 6, let's parent it to the top one. And let's do the same thing for B, 2 through 6. Let's parent it to the top one. And let's select these and let's parent it to the top of side C01. And the same thing for side D. Number 2 through 6, let's parent it to side D01. That way we can just move the first one for each of the sides. Okay, let's solo right now. Let's solo these. Let's solo side A. And what we'll do is hit Control A or Command A to select all of these layers and click on the 3D switch. Now we have coordinates for X, Y, and Z for all of them. And what we'll do is select side A01 and let's switch it to the top view. And what we want to do is hit P for position and let's move this. Let's move this to minus 600 in the Z value. So it's all the way here in the Z value. Let's make this smaller so you can see. This was here in the center, so we made it minus 600. Let's go to side B now. Let's unsolo all these. Let's go to side B. Hit R for rotation. And for the orientation for the Y, let's move it 90 degrees. And hit P for position. And what we'll do is we'll move it. And here for the X, we'll move it until it reaches 0. Let's go to side C, hit R for rotation. And for the orientation for the Y, let's make it 180 and hit P for position. And what we'll do is we'll move it. In the Z, we'll move it all the way so it hits 600. And lastly, for side D, hit R for rotation. And for the orientation for the Y, let's keep moving it. Let's make it 270 and hit P for position. What I'll do is I'll move this a little bit so we can see. And for the position for the X, make it 1200. And now when we go to, let's go to custom view 1. Now we have our cube. You can see we have our cube. And let's go ahead and let's add that reflection. So what we'll do is let's go ahead and let's go to side A and let's go to side A placeholder. Let's bring it all the way down. Let's go back to our front view now and let's make it a 3D layer. Hit S for scale. Let's unlink it and let's make it -100. Let's solo this so we can see it. Now hit P for position, and what we want to do is move it down. Move it down in the Y. And what we want to do is make it 1800 for the Y. Let's go to the top view now. Let's unsolo it. And you can see that we need to place it right here. So again, what we'll do is we'll move this. And you can see that we're adjusting the value along the Z axis. And let's make it -600. Okay, if we go to active, let's go to the custom view 1. And we hit T for opacity. We can bring down the opacity to 50. We have a nice reflection. We can actually add, let's go ahead and we can add a blur. Let's go to fast box blur. You can blur it maybe 3 pixels. This is up to you. You can blur it more if you want, maybe 5. You can bring down the opacity even more, but this is totally up to you. Let's make it 35 for now. But here's a reflection. Now we need to add it to the different sides. So what we'll do is this side A, this reflection, we'll actually call it side A reflection. Instead of placeholder, let's call it reflection. Let's make this bigger so you can see it. And let's make a copy. Let's bring it down. And this one will be our side B reflection. Let's solo this for now. And let's go to our top view. Let's go to our project window. Let's go to our side B. And let's swap it with the side B placeholder. Perfect. Now hit R for rotation. And let's move this down so you can see. And for the orientation, let's make it 90 for the Y. And now you can see that we need to place this. So let's move it back. Hit P for position. And for the Z, we need to make it 0. And then let's move this right here. And let's make it 0 for the X. So these are the coordinates, 0, 1800, and 0. Now what we can do is let's go back to our side A. Let's make another copy, Control D or Command D. And this one, let's call it side C reflection. Let's solo this and let's bring in our side C placeholder. Let's swap it. Hit R for rotation so we can bring up the orientation and let's change it to 180 and hit P for position. And what we'll do is let's move it all the way here, and it'll be 600 for the Z. This will be your coordinate 600, 1800, 600. And let's do one more. Let's make a copy of A, Control D. Let's move it all the way down. Side D reflection, and let's swap it. Let's solo this. Hit R for rotation. And the orientation, let's adjust the value along the Y. Let's make it 270. Hit P for position. And again, we need to place this. Let's move it back. So the Z will be 0 right here. And then let's move it. And for the X, it'll be 1200. So let's change it to 1200. So it's 1200, 1800, and 0. Now we go to custom view 1. Let's unsolo this. And let's make this bigger so you can see. And let's go to the orbit tool. Let's orbit this around. We have our 3D box all set up and ready to go and animate. Before we animate, we need to set up a couple controls. So what we'll do is, let's go to the timeline, hit Control A or Command A, and let's unlink all the parents. So let's select none. And what we'll do now is let's deselect, and let's go ahead, go to Layer, New, let's create a null object. And this one, let's call it Row 1 Control. And let's make it a 3D layer, turn on the 3D switch. And let's go to the front. And what we'll do is let's change the position, hit P for position, and let's move this all the way up. Actually, let's move it up on the Y, not on the Z, but on the Y. Let's move it right here. Let's make this 0. And let's make another copy, Control D. And let's call this Row 2 Control. Hit P for position, and let's make it 200 in the Y. And another copy, Control D or Command D if you're using an Apple computer. And let's call it Row 3. Hit P for position, and the Y will be 400. We need to do 3 more. So Control D, Control D, Control D. And let's move this down. Let's move this down, and this one down. And let's call this Control for Row 4. This one will be for 5, Row 5. And this one will be Row 6. So select these, hit P for position, and for Row 4, let's make the Y 600. Let's move this down. For Row 5, let's make it 800. And for Row 6, let's make it 1000. So these are our 6 controls. And what we'll do now is let's make the timeline bigger. Let's go ahead and let's make these smaller. So select all of the first row, 0, 1 for side A, for B, for C, and for D. And let's parent it to the Row 1 control. Let's go to the second one for side A, 0, 2, B2, C2, and D2. And let's parent it with Row 2 control. Select the third one, B3, C3, and D3, and select Row 3 control. And let's select the fourth, A4, B4, C4, and D4, and select Row 4 control. Select A5, B5, C5, and D5, and select Row 5 control. And let's do the last one, 6, B6, C6, D6, And let's select the reflection. And let's parent it to row 6 control. So pretty much we should have it all set up. So now what we can do is, let's go back and we can create, let's actually for now go to custom v1. Before we create a camera, let's just check this out. Let's go to row 1 control, hit R for rotation and go to the Y rotation. And now we can rotate this perfectly, the first row. And what we'll do is let's actually add some keyframes. So let's zoom in and click on the stopwatch. We're at the very beginning at 0. And what we'll do is let's go to 12, frame 12, which is half a second. And let's adjust the value. And let's make it -90 to go to the second image. And select these keyframes, F9 for easy ease. And what we'll do is let's switch to the graph editor and make sure that you're in the value graph. And what we'll do is we'll adjust this curve. Let's make sure that we have just the Y. So select this point. And what we want to do is we want it to start pretty quick. So bring this handle and holding on to shift. Let's bring it in. And this one, let's bring it out. So we have, it'll start very fast, then it'll slow down. So the beginning will be very fast, then it'll slow down like this. And if you want, we can extend this a little bit more. Let's move this keyframe maybe to 16. Let's check it out. So it's up to you, amigos. Definitely experiment with the timing of this. This actually looks pretty good. And what we can do is let's copy this keyframe, let's select it, Y rotation, Control C or Command C. Let's go to the rest, hit R for rotation. And what we'll do is Control V or Command V to paste, and it'll paste the keyframes. Now, if we play it back, it's going to do it at the same time. Now, the key thing is let's offset these keyframes. So the second one, let's move 2 frames. And for row 2, let's move it 2 more frames. Let's go to row 3 and let's move it here. Let's go forward 2 more frames and let's go down to row 4. Let's move it over. Go forward 2 more frames. Go to row 5 and go forward 2 more frames. And let's move these keyframes from row 6. So now we get this nice animation, and there's a delay between the different rows. And what we can do is we can be here for a couple seconds, maybe for 2 seconds, and at 3, for example, now we can start and we can go to the next one, the next slide. So what we can do is add a keyframe. And remember, I think the duration of the move was 16 frames. So let's go to 316. And then this one will be -180. And again, let's go to the value graph. So this looks perfect. Let's zoom in here. And this, holding on to shift, let's click and drag. So we get this nice curve. Let's move this a little bit so there's a little bit smooth exit, and it'll slow down as it enters into this keyframe. And what we can do is simply select these keyframes, only Control C. And what we'll do is go forward 2 frames and let's go to row 2 and let's paste it in. Let's go to the value graph and just make sure that it's perfect. Let's go forward 2 more frames. And let's go to row 3 and let's paste the keyframe. 2 more frames, forward 2 more frames to 306. Let's paste it. Just checking to see if it looks good in the value graph. Let's go forward 2 more frames for row 5. Paste it in. 2 more frames for row 6. And let's paste these keyframes. So this is the next move. And now it's up to you, amigos. You can control the duration. You can control how long you want to be on each slide and continue to just rotate it. You just rotate it along the Y. Keep adding keyframes. What I'm going to do now is simply finish the design, show you some cool things that you can add to make it look better. And there's one thing that I've noticed that you can see that it's in full resolution, but there's a slight line. And that is because even though we lined it up perfectly, because of the pixels, you'll be able to see almost like a dotted line. And the way to fix that is what I do is select all of our sides. Let's go down and select all the sides. Hit S for scale. Let's unlink it. And then along the Y scale, make it 101. So we're increasing it by 1%. Let's go back. And that really should take care of it, and that should fix it. So you can see it eliminated those lines. And let's do a RAM preview. Once you get to this stage, just keep adding keyframes for the Y rotation. Now, what you can do is hit Control K to open up the composition settings. And what I'll do is now I'll switch the size of my composition to 1920 by 1080. Hit OK and hit Control Y. And let's go ahead and let's create a background. Let's rename it. Let's select it. Let's rename it to BG grad for gradient. And let's bring it all the way down. Let's move it all the way down. We have a lot of layers, so let's move it down. And what I'm going to do actually to hide all of these layers is let's select all of these layers, all of our sides. Let's click on the shy guy and let's click it here. So we hide all of those layers. And if we want to bring it back, just click it back so you can see those layers. That way it's easier now when we're adding new layers. So for this background, this actually looks pretty cool on black. We can also add a gradient. Go to Effect, go to Generate. Let's go to Gradient Ramp. And what we can do is let's make this gray. And let's make this black. And let's make it radial. Let's make it actually maybe like a dark blue actually. Let's see it. And let's switch our camera to active camera. And now we have to create a new camera. And we can make it 35, either try with 28 or 35 millimeter. And let's go back later, camera settings, and let's switch it to 28. And let's go to the camera tools. And what we can do is we can actually pull back. Let's pull back. And let's work on the gradient. Make this a little darker. And then this one, we can make it a little bit blue. And let's create a floor. So what we'll do is let's go back to our project. Let's go to the solids. And actually, let's make a new solid. Control Y. Control Y or Command Y to create a new solid layer. And let's make it black. Hit OK. Let's bring it down and let's call it floor. And what I'll do is go to the mask tool, go to the ellipse tool. Let's draw an ellipse like this. And let's change the blending mode. Change the blending mode to soft light. Hit T for opacity and let's bring it down to maybe about 50. maybe even more. That looks good. And we can also modify, hit Control T. Once you select the mask, hit Control T, and we can modify the shape of this mask. And it gives us a floor. And with our camera, you can switch it. Let's move this so we can change the perspective. And that is the basic, amigo. That is the basic steps to creating this 3D box slideshow. Now you can animate the camera if you want. In the template that I have, I added a control to animate the camera. You can add text in the background if you want. You can add flare. You can add as many more elements as you want. But hopefully this gives you enough steps to get started and to start building your 3D box slideshow. Thank you for watching, and remember that life is truly a gift. Make it count.